Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Microsoft Data and AI South Florida User Group. My name is Adriano, your host for today. Thank you very much for making the time to join us on this presentation. As we start, please let me know whether you can hear me using the comment section on the live chat. Also, let me know where are you connecting from. I am, as I mentioned, in South Florida. So, as it relates to today's presentation, we have another very exciting presentation. We'll be covering Microsoft Fabric Data Agents. And as it relates to that, let me know your questions during the presentation by using the live chat. If you have already passed from the live streaming presentation, use the comment section below. And always remember, subscribe, like, and share. Now, again, remember, questions, use the live chat. Afterwards, use the comment section. All right, what do we have here for you today? As I mentioned, we'll be specifically more into the tuning part of Microsoft Fabric Data Agents. We'll be covering today, and this will be brought to you by Thimantha. So without further ado, let's bring Thimantha in. Hello, Thimantha. Can you hear me?
Hello, Adriano. Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
I am well, thank you. How about you?
Yeah, doing good here as well. Firstly, thank you so much for having me, and it's an honor to be here as always. Yeah, thank you so much.
Excellent, man. Thank you as well for being here with us and share the knowledge. Really appreciate that and may this be again one of many to come. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. And remember, folks, as I mentioned, let us know whether you can hear us use the live chat. And well, let's take a look here what Thimantha is bringing to us. Yeah, go ahead, Thimantha.
Right. Thank you, Adriano. The session that I'll be presenting today is Beyond the Prompt Tuning Fabric Data Agents for Flawless Results. Um, this session is completely based on my experience in tuning Fabric data agents, like going through that process literally to tune the Fabric data agents. And a little bit about me before moving any further. I'm Thimantha, and I'm a senior data engineer at Amos, which is one of the biggest pension funds here in Canada. I do have a bunch of certifications, Microsoft certifications under me as well, which you do see in the screen. Apart from that, I love contributing to the data community. I'm also part of the leadership team of the Toronto Data Professionals community. If you would like to connect with me, you can scan through the QR code in the right-hand side of your screen, which would take you to my LinkedIn profile. So I would love to connect with you and hear from you. Feel free to connect as well. Um, a bit more about the Toronto data professionals community. It's one of the largest data communities here in Canada. So we host online monthly events, and we have one annual in-person event, which is Day of Data Toronto, which was previously known as SQL Saturday Toronto. This year we'll be having SQL Saturday Toronto on 26th September. So, which is roughly around 6 weeks time. So feel free to register as well. If you scan this QR code, it would get you to the Toronto Data Professionals Community uh, meetup page, and from there. you should be able to register for our Day of Data Toronto 2026 happening on 26th of September. That's a little bit about the community. And without further ado, let's get into our agenda for today. Looking at today's agenda, firstly, I will be covering a little bit of basics on the Fabric data agents to get you started. Then afterwards, we would be looking at tuning Fabric data agents, which would be covered uh, primarily with the use with multiple demos. And finally, I'd like to give you a very brief actionable blueprint to take away as well when tuning your to use when tuning your Fabric data agents. Right. So, what what is a Fabric data agent? Now, Fabric data agent is no different to any other agent that you have heard about in the market, right? So you can ask questions from it and you get responses to it. And behind the scenes, you do have an LLM. In this case, it's actually OpenAI that that helps helps you in this process, right? So simply in a nutshell, that is what an agent does. And in terms of Fabric data agent, the speciality is that it allows you to connect to Fabric data sources, right? So this is primarily your Fabric lake houses, your warehouses, your semantic models. It could be ontology, it could be a KQL database, you name it. Any as as I'm aware, like you can literally connect to all the Fabric data sources, all the Fabric data storage options that are available with the use of the data agent. But I must mention, like in my testing and in my hands-on experience, I had only experience of Fabric data agents within the boundary. Like I had only used the Fabric data agents with Fabric lake houses, Fabric warehouses, semantic models, and ontology as sources. I haven't tried it out with other options like KQL database. So I should clearly mention that while I'm presenting this session as well. And that experience is what I had completely used to build this session. Now, what does now we looked at what is a Fabric data agent. Now, what does a Fabric data agent actually look like in action, right? So let's say you are the end user and you are consuming this data agent, and you can simply ask a question from this agent, right? A simple prompt like how much sales revenue did we generate in 2025? Now, let's say this is a sales data agent, right? That is directed to some kind of a sales data source. So if you ask a question like how much sales revenue did we generate in 2025, what the agent would eventually do, it would query the respective Fabric data source that is configured or that is connected to this Fabric data agent, and it would get you the response and get you the retrieve the results from that query and get you the response, right? So what you see in blue in the screen right now with the dotted lines is the response that we get back from the Fabric data agent. Now, what I want to focus a little bit in this particular diagram is queries, like querying the source part of things, which is, I'm not sure if I can highlight it in the screen, which I potentially cannot. So, but I just want to focus on this query source, or simply querying the source part of things. Now, a Fabric data agent utilizes multiple tools within Fabric to actually query the source, dependent on the source. It uses a tool called NL to SQL, which is natural language to SQL, to convert natural language to SQL queries to get the responses. Now, this particular tool is primarily used when you are using the Fabric warehouse or the Fabric lakehouse as a source. Then also, the Fabric data agent would use a tool called NL to DAX, which means natural language to DAX, to convert the natural language to DAX queries to retrieve the results. And this is relevant when you have the semantic model of a Power BI semantic model as a source. Um, where you would simply convert your natural language into a DAX query and you get the response through it. Then also, Fabric Data Agent utilizes a tool called NL to KQL, which which means natural language to KQL, where the natural language is converted to Kusto query language to get the retrieve the results, retrieve the necessary results. Now, this is probably you would realize it from the uh, name of the tool itself. This is directly relevant to KQL databases, right? So let's say you have a KQL database as a source. So the moment you that you raise a prompt or simply ask a question from this agent, it will use the NL to KQL tool to convert that natural language question into a query and get you the right response, right? So this is pretty much how a Fabric data agent operates behind the scenes. Now, in this session, our scope is completely going to be between this data agent and the Fabric source, right? So this is simply where all your tuning happens. You can tune your data agent in the agent level, and also you can tune your data agent in the source level, right? So these are the two options in which you can tune your data agent, right? Now, firstly, we'll be looking at how we can tune the agent in the agent level, right? So for that, I do have a simple demo, right? I do have a link in the slide as well, which you would eventually go through with time. But firstly, let me take you into my demo environment and we could let me just walk you through a little bit of what you see here, right? So this is my demo environment, and this is simply a Fabric workspace that is running under Fabric capacity. You would see multiple stuff in this workspace that are relevant and also relevant for our demo. I use this for my own testing stuff as well. But what I want, so what you see in green on top here, simply with these green icons that are um, uh, uh, green icons is the Fabric data agents. You can also see the type here on the artifact. It when it says Fabric data, when it says data agent, it is simply a Fabric data agent. So I had spinned up multiple Fabric data agents. So I don't want to overwhelm you first up. So let me just click on one of the agents for now, right? So this is DA Human Resources. What I had done here is extremely simple, right? So I don't want to focus on anything else here. So let me just show you what I had done, right? So in this case, I had spinned up an agent, and all I had done is just uh, I simply connected my agent to a lake house which has a table in it. This lakehouse is called LH Human Resources, right? So if I take you through that to what that lakehouse looks like, so this is that lakehouse. Extremely simple. No too much, too many, no like very simple tables. Mm, it just got me a few minutes to spin up. But the whole point is all I did was, so I just uploaded a file and then created a table out of that file, right? Uh, which is a delta table. So all I'm doing in the agent is simply calling this, simply connecting the agent for this particular table in my lakehouse, right? So this is my data agent, and I had connected to the lakehouse and connected to this specific table to get the necessary data for my data agent, HR data agent, right? So you can, so all that is, and trust me, that is all I did. And I did try a few prompts, and still the agent was accurate for the most part, right? So spinning up an agent, what I want to emphasize here, apart from the agent instructions, is that spinning up an agent and testing it is, it does not consume a lot of effort, right? Um, Even if you have a simple CSV file, upload it to something like a lakehouse, bring it as load it to a delta table and just call the delta table, and you are good to like test it out. All right. So spinning up an agent and getting it to operate is extremely simple, but the consuming part is you also need, it's not just about testing your agent, right? You also need to ensure that this agent is going to sustain, right? Like I can spin it up quickly and I can test it for my sample prompts, but it should go more further, right? It should sustain, right? So this sustainability is completely dependent on our tuning, right? How you tune your agent, or simply how you do your agent level tuning and data source level tuning, right? So, with that said, getting back into the topic, now that I had given you a brief overview of what I had done and what does my agent in this case looks like. So, what I wanted to cover in this demo is simply the agent level tuning, which is ideally the agent instructions, right? So with that said, on the agent instructions, if I go to my setup, I had already put up my agent instructions, right? So this is the agent level instructions that is relevant for the entire data agent, right? uh, no, let's say you have, so here it's just one source. Let's say you have 3 to 4 sources that gets you different data at different points. This agent instruction can be arranged in a way to simply work with all the different types of data sources that are connected to your Fabric data agent. Now, I'll take a step back and tell you what this agent instruction actually is. Now, an agent instruction or the agent instructions actually means you are instructing the agents, you are telling the agent how to operate, right? How to manage different situations, how to manage different questions, and simply how to operate as a agent. That is what an agent instruct, what the agent instruction section does. Now, where do you see the agent instructions? Whenever you go to any kind of Fabric data agent, the window, this is the you would be, let's say, let me actually take you through that again, right? So let's say I want to click on the human resources data agent. You would be directed to a very similar window like you see in the screen right now. So you would see the agent instructions under this. So you would see three tabs here. You would see a tab called data, you would see a tab called setup, you would see a tab called tools. So the agent instructions are under the setup tab, and you would see right on top something called agent instructions. Now, a question that you might have is, okay, an agent instruction or the agent instructions section is all about instructing the agents in natural language, right? Telling the agent how to operate and telling the agent about its objectives and how to manage KPIs and how to manage different scenarios, right? So, is there any structure to it? Like, how would you structure these agent instructions, right? Now, for that, Microsoft had given us a bit of guidance, right? Now, this particular link is also there in my slide deck in this exact same slide. So I just opened it up, and you would so this link focuses on configuring your data agents, and it tells you like how to configure the data agent in multiple ways. We would cover the rest of the ways like as we go on with this presentation. But right off as of now, I want to focus on the data agent instruction section, right? So in under data agent instructions, Microsoft clearly states how your data agent instructions should be structured, right? So your data agent instructions should have the objective of the data agent, right? What is the data agent supposed to do? It also should have details regarding the data sources that are used in the data agent. So let's say I'm using a lakehouse, a warehouse, a semantic model, right? So details about that source and where is it coming from, and maybe some key pieces of details that are essential should be mentioned under the data sources. Apart from that, there is also the key terminology that this agent should be aware of, right? So there can be certain jargons and terms that we could expect this agent to know, right? So these can be mentioned under the agent instructions as well, right? Then also you can give the response guidelines for this agent under the agent instructions, right? Uh, Simply how should the responses that the agent gives should be presented. Should it be presented in bullet form? Should it be presented in a paragraphs? Should it be presented in some different way that is clear to understand? Should it be presented in a brief way? Should it be presented in a detailed way? You name it. You just need to specify it with some examples in it. And that is simply what the response guidelines would do. And also handling common topics, right? Simply, this is about how would you handle um, frequently, like when you're building an agent, with the objective of the agent, you are also pretty much aware of what are the common topics that this agent should handle, right? So these details should be captured under handling common topics, right? So this is pretty much the generic structure you need to follow in your agent instructions, right? Now, in my case, I had done something similar as well. And for your case as well, you can do something very identical if you're planning to test it out. But my recommendation is something you should be aware of is you do need to type everything here line by line, right? You literally don't need to do that, right? So you can use any kind of AI tool in the market. Claude, I use M365 Copilot, but whatever the AI tool that's available in the market to generate this agent instructions for you, like that for that as well, it's necessary for you to give uh, so give the necessary. It's necessary for you to give the specific content to the agent so that it can give you the agent instructions. For example, in this case, what I mentioned was I simply, so you can see this is the file, right? So how I manage this agent, got this agent instructions generated is I simply attach the file into my M365 Copilot, and I simply prompted saying I want the agent instructions for my Fabric Data agent, and it should cover these things, and this is how it should be, and this is how the response should be. This is how it should be, kind of thing, and it generated me the agent instructions that would be essential for this agent. And all I did was I just copied and pasted it here and validated it. Right now, using AI in the process, it could be GPT, ChatGPT, it could be Claude, it could be uh, anything. It could be M365 Copilot or anything that you use. Feel free to use anything that you wish for this. But the most important factor is no matter what you use, you have to be that human in the loop to like validate it and be that guardrail to ensure that the uh, agent instructions are structured and it is aligned to what you expect your agent to do, right? You can generate the agent instructions to fasten up the process. That does not mean you have to completely rely on the agent instructions to give you that right outcome, right? That is not how it should operate, right? So that is that. And so yeah, so this is what my agent instructions look like, and this is how you need to structure your agent instructions. So that was about the agent instructions for you and the agent level tuning, right? Now, next up, what I'd like to focus on is, let me actually, okay, sorry, I'm just switching my screens here. So let me just uh, go to my slide deck. Yeah, perfect. Right. So far we covered the agent level tuning, right, with the agent instructions. And next up, what I'd like to focus on is source level tuning, right? Now, in terms of source level tuning, firstly, I'll be covering the source level tuning for the warehouse, so simply the lake house. And secondly, I'll focus on the source level tuning for other items like the semantic model, and also a bit of direction with the ontology. That's pretty much what it's looking like. So looking at the warehouse and the lake house, it has its own uh, setting. So simply, I would say features for source level tuning. So let us get into our demo environment and take a look at what does this look like, right? Um, so what you see in the screen now is our same demo environment, but what I'll be doing now is I will be getting you into another agent that I had spin up, right? So in this case, our agent is completely reliant or simply connected to a warehouse. So this is a sample warehouse, a very simple warehouse. If I get take you into that warehouse, this is what it looks like. So in Fabric, you get the opportunity to spin up a sample warehouse. So this is the sample warehouse I spinned up. And it's like a test warehouse. I believe this is the New York taxi data, but I'm not 100% sure. I apologize for that. But yeah, this is pretty much what the warehouse data would look like, right? And this is so I all I had done is I had connected that warehouse into this agent. And what I want to take you through here is not the agent instructions. So agent instructions, we covered it previously. But if you go to the setup, yes, we do have the agent instructions. And along with the agent instructions, you would see two, or you would see a data source. In this case, it's a warehouse. And also you would see two more settings that you get to configure, right? Specifically related to your tuning. That is the data source instructions, and that is and also we have the example queries, right? Now, data source instructions uh, is so I'll firstly focus on the data source instructions and guide or take you through what it looks like. So this that you see in the screen right now is the data source uh, instructions section. Under the data source instructions section, it's broken down into two further sections, subsections, I would say. So we have the data source description and the data source instructions itself. Now, the data source description is simply a high level description of your data source, right? So in here, if you could take a look at this, I had given a high level description of my data source with my data source description. And the data source instruction focuses on the very detailed end of your data source, right? Now, what does that mean by the very detailed end? So, for example, in the data source description, you would specify the tables and what each of the tables would do, for example. But when it comes to the data source instructions, you can focus on even much more you can focus on even details that are even deeper, right? Like the fields and the calculations, or even any kind of metrics you might have. In this case, it's a warehouse, but you can focus on the very, very detailed end of the tables or that you have in your data source, right? In this case, the tables that you have in your warehouse, right? So this is what it looks like. So you can see uh, in my data source descriptions, it would give you that high level overview. But when it comes to the data source instructions, I'm picking on each and every table that I have that I use in this warehouse. And I'm giving a definition, and also I'm specifying the fields that each of these data tables do have, right? So this is what it's looking right, and this is the data source description and the data source instruction. So data source description, you give a high level definition or high level description on your data source, and data source instructions, you give the very detailed end of the things for your data agent, right? So that is that is what you could configure under the data source instructions section. And once again, same process here. Nothing is written word by word here, and you don't have to do the same as well. You are free to use AI to like get these instructions generated. But what is the most important factor here is that you be that human in the loop to ensure that the instructions, descriptions that you provide are aligned to what you expect the agent to be, right? So that is that. Then we do have the another section for tuning that is called example queries. Example queries is what the word says itself, right? You are giving questions and example queries. You are giving potential questions that the agent would be asked, along with example queries to query the data source so that your agent can refer them when very similar questions are asked from the agent. So all you're doing is you're giving a bunch of example queries saying the agent to like refer to it, like whenever very equivalent questions come in to query the data source, right? Now, this is another tuning capability in Fabric. Now you can see in Fabric data agents, this is specifically available for your warehouse and the lake house, and I believe it's available for the KQL databases as well, right? So this is what it looks. So here's what it looks like. So simply in here I have some example queries saying an example query saying total number of trips, and this is the query that you would use to get the total number of trips, and list all the cities, and this is the query that you would get to list all the cities. Average temperature, and this is the query you would use to get the average temperature, right? And the beauty of it is that now on the right hand side of the screen, I do see the agent, but let me get you a bigger view of the agent, our agent for prompting. And this is what my agent looks like. And let's say, okay, let me clear the chat. And I would say something like, give me the total number of trips. And you would see in that response, it is actually, it would tell you that it's referring to an example queries to get the response, right? So, so you would get the total number of reps as 10,000. And also you would see an option called one step completed. And if you go a little bit of into the depth of it, you would see another drop down, and you see the example queries that I use to generate this response. In this case, it's using this, and it's simply based on these example queries that are given. Right. So that is simply the example queries. Now, I can also show you another use case on this example queries that I had worked on. Okay, this is this one. Right. So once again, this is our HR data. By the way, all this employee data and HR data are publicly available. I got it from Kaggle. So you guys can do the same, and you guys can test out your things as well for testing purposes. So all these data sources are sample data sources and data that's literally available online for you to publicly for you to go download and try things out, right? Just wanted to put that out there. And also if you just so this is so here once again I'm referring to that same data source that we looked at when we looked at the agent instructions. And you can see I am referring to the employee data, and I had given some example queries. What are the departments? What is the highest salary? And I had given the queries in it. And let's say you want to add a new example query. All you do is click on it, and you would see uh, another text box popping up in the latter part of the screen. And let's just test out an example query in this case. So I click on add, and I would simply um, specify something like, okay, which states uh, are the uh, implies from, right? Implies coming from. Uh, are these implies coming from, right? Which states are these implies coming from? And I'll just have a simple query in place fill. I would just focus on that state fill that I see here. So I would say I distinct state from yeah um, the view dot imply data, and this is what the state. This is what the example query would look like. And yeah, if I want to ensure that this example query is utilized for any prompts uh, any future prompts, or when the Fabric data agent is consumed, I need to make sure that example query is ticked on the right hand side, as you can see. Or if you want to select all the example queries, you do have an option on top as well, right? And something about the example queries is that you get the option to export all and import as well, right? Let's say I want to export this example queries and import it to another query. That's an option as well. And another agent, that is an option that you get with this example queries as well. Right. So that was about the example queries. And sorry, that was about the data source instructions and example queries for the warehouse and the lakehouse, right? Uh, Once again, I need to mention that the source level tuning capabilities for the warehouse and lakehouse are equivalent. And this is, and you have the data source instructions, and also you have the example queries. Under data source instructions, you can give data source descriptions, which is a high level description of the data source. And also you can have the data source instructions itself, which where you can give a very detailed explanation, very detailed instructions on the data source. That is that. Now, with that said, I'm moving into my next demo, which is source level tuning for the semantic model, right? Now, the approach for the semantic model is tuning is much more different, a bit more different. So for this, I have a semantic model in my local machine open and Power BI desktop. And this is what the semantic model looks like. Very simple semantic model following a star schema. You have the sales table and some dimensions around it. Once again, completely built with sample data. And I would get right into the point. So how do you tune the data source? How do you tune the semantic model to be used with the Fabric data agent? To do that, you need to use the prep data for AI option that you see in the top right hand side of the screen under the home tab, right? So if I click on the prep data for AI option, you would see a window popping up that gives you multiple options to prepare your semantic model to be consumed by not just Fabric data agents, but also by Power BI Copilot or Fabric Copilot and options like that as well, right? But in this case, since our scope is Fabric data agents, we'll be completely focused on the Fabric data agent front. Firstly, you get an option to simplify the data schema. Now, this is all about just specifying which tables and fields or simply measures should your data agent, should your semantic model, should your data agent consume from the semantic model, right? So you get to like pick and pick, like which ones are you going to have in and which ones you do want the data agent to refer to when giving responses, right? So that is completely managed by Simplify the Data Schema, right? Now, verifying the answers option, this is primarily focused on the Power BI visualizations and stuff, which I wouldn't be covering in this piece. And this is primarily relevant to the Power BI Copilot front, right? But what I'd like to focus on is add AI instructions. Nature of this is very, very identical to the nature of the agent instructions. But this time you are giving semantic model level instructions, so data source level instructions, right? So you can simply specify your data source level instructions this way, very identical to the agent level instructions, table definitions. So in this case, you can see if you look at the age instructions that I had given. So I had given some context in terms of how does this um, semantic model operate and what it's supposed to do. And later on, I had given the very specific table definitions to the field level and calculations. And also later on, I had also provided some supporting questions, you can say, analysis guidelines and stuff like that to actually fulfill these agent instructions, right? Once again, I did not write anything word to word. And you can simply use AI to generate these instructions for you. And this is pretty much what I did in this case as well. So it covers aspects such as business context, as I mentioned, table definitions, and also I give some analysis guidelines, right? Like now which table that needs to be used for which kind of analytics, and those kind of things are covered here. And supporting questions, response preferences. How should your response look like, and what should your response? What kind of an response is expected is something that I had covered here as well. So after setting all this up, all you need to do is just click on OK and publish your data model as you and I always do with Power BI, right? Then afterwards, your data model would be present in that Fabric workspace. So in this case, this is the data model that I had published, and I had called this data model with another data agent, and this is what it looks like, right? And in this data agent, if you go to the setup tab, you can only see agent instructions. You wouldn't see anything related to the data source level, because the data source in this case is primarily our semantic model. And in a semantic model, you configure this your semantic model or provide instructions to your semantic model in your local in the prep data for AI option itself, right? So that option does not appear as of today under the Fabric Data Agent and under the Setup tab in your Fabric Data Agent. So that is a bit of how you can tune uh, tune your semantic model, or simply tune your semantic model to operate with your Fabric Data Agent. And finally, what I'd like to cover is called is simply ontology, right? Now, ontology is simply providing business level context and business level definitions to your data, right? There are two ways that you can create an ontology. You can generate an ontology with your semantic model, and also you can create an ontology from scratch. Now, how would you generate an ontology with your semantic model? So let us go to our sample semantic model, and let me take you through an example of how we could do that. Right now, all I did was I just clicked on the semantic model in my Power BI workspace, and this is what it looks like. And the moment you open your semantic model under the home tab, would be able to see an option called generate ontology, right? The moment you click on ontology, it would take you through that process to convert the semantic model into an ontology, right? So it would ask you an ontology name. I would say something like ONT, SM sales, and I'll specify the workspace where I want this ontology to be in, and I would simply click on create, and it would generate that ontology to me, right? Now, while this creates, something that I need to mention is in this case, this is not a finalized ontology, right? This is a foundation, right? What you had created right now what you had generated here is a foundation ontology. Now you can complete your ontology or finalize your simply work on the missing pieces and complete your ontology on top of this foundation, right? This is not a final version. That is the first thing you need to understand when generating an ontology with the semantic model. The second point that you need to keep in mind is Ontology does not mean that the ontology is a structure. It's business definition and business context. It does not have any underlying data underneath it, right? It's just a structure, simply like a table without data. A table would have its columns, data types, and character lengths, but it if it doesn't have data, it's not going to make sense, right? Same thing here as well. Like ontology by default does not have data underneath it. It's just a structure, right? That you have with business definitions, right? So to simply have data in place for these ontologies, what do you need to do, right? How do you simply ensure that the data is synced to these ontologies? Now, to do that, you need to do something called data binding, right? Now, before I get into data binding and binding your data or simply syncing your data with this ontology, I want to take you through this generated ontology a little bit. Now, this is what the generated ontology looks like. Now, if you recall, I took you through that previous semantic model. Now, in the previous semantic model, we had a sales fact table, and you had other dimensions like product, date, region, and all the other sorts of dimensions, right? Now, what had happened is all this fact table and the dimension had converted into entities, and relationships between these entities had been defined, as you can see, right? So the power of ontology here compared to a semantic model is that you get to define the business context or to define data from the entity level. So if I click on the entity on the source, like if I click on overview, I get the opportunity to provide descriptions and to configure the uh, and to define data or simply provide business context in the entity level, right? This you can do this with any entity. I can provide descriptions, I can provide additional metadata, synonyms, and stuff like that. I can also define the entities in the properties level. I know the lights shut down. I think that's because of this is sensor based, but we'll continue as we are almost done here. So next up, what I'd like to focus on is we can also uh, define uh, the sorry. You can so previously what I mentioned was we can define uh, the data in the entity level. You can also next up define the data in the property level. Now, properties are nothing other than the fields in your entity, so fields in your tables, right? So you can provide descriptions and you can define, provide definitions under in the property level as well, right? And also you can define you can provide data definitions or business context in the relationship level. So this is the relationships between the entities. You can define them and provide context to that as well. So if you click on a relationship like the relationship between sales to product, sales as product does not make complete sense to me. I could simply say that something like uh, sales byproduct, right? Sales byproduct, right? So let's say sales byproduct, right? I could say something like this and define my relationship. And what I could potentially do is I could also define this relationship a little further. I could say like uh, this relationship uh, defines the sales generated for each product, right? I could say something like that, and I could configure the keys for this relationship. So I could configure something. I know I didn't save it, but that's fine. So let's say the key that I should use here is the product ID, right? So I would select on the product ID as my key. I will click on save. And if I go get into a step back, I can, sorry, uh, we were in sales. This is the one. So I have my product ID, and simply I can also define, uh, have the product ID here as my key field. I can save it up. And what I could do is I could go to the product itself, this relationship again. Uh, the relationship is now defined between product ID to product ID, but what I did not save is this, so I would repeat this. This relationship indicates the sales generated by each product. I would say that, and this is what it looks like. I would click on save, and I had defined the relationship. Right? So that is simply how you would define relationships. So you can provide data definitions in the entity level, property level, and also the relationship level. That is so powerful, right? So that is the key part of ontology. Now, that is simply how you would provide the business context and provide data definitions. But what about the actual data? Now, previously I mentioned about scheme data binding, right? Because ontology does not have data underneath it. It's like a structure. It's like a bunch of tables without data in it, right? You have the fields, you have the data types, you have the character lengths, but it does not have any data underneath it. And what you need to do is you need to bind the data into these entities. How would you bind it and what options do we have? Right now, how do you bind it? So if you go into each entity and click on the three ellipses, you get that opportunity to uh, bind the data. You can click on bind the data, and it would get you into a window like you're seeing in the screen right now. And if you click on add data binding, you get two options. You get to bind your data from your lakehouse table, number one, and also you get to bind your data from an event house table, which is number two, which is the second option that we have. Now, what does this tell you? That your data always needs to be in a lakehouse table or event house table as of today to bind the data into ontology and to actually use the ontology. Is this recommended in all the cases? Probably not. Because as of today, we all know that not all our data is in lake houses or event house tables, right? That our data is probably residing in a Azure SQL DB residing somewhere, and you are using a semantic model to simply do that semantic model refresh and bring the data into your reports. And it might be a situation like that. Your data might be residing in an AELS, Azure Data Lake Gen 2 table, right? Gen 2. And you might want to, uh, yes, I think the shortcut capability is there to bring data from Azure Data Lake Gen 2 to the Lakehouse table. I haven't tested it out with data binding in this case, but I believe it is pot- potentially possible. But like the point is, your data might not always be inside Fabric. It can be outside Fabric as well, right? So if your data is residing outside Fabric, my recommendation is without spending that effort to bring your data into Fabric, focus and use ontology, focus on other options, right? Like you potentially have a good semantic model, right? Clean that semantic model up, use the prep for data for AI option, and simply start consuming that semantic model, start spin up an agent connecting to that semantic model, provide good agent instructions, and see how that goes, right? Probably half the time it's going to work out if you have a good semantic model. And even if you don't, you can clean up, it's worthwhile cleaning up that semantic model and setting things up there rather than completely bringing your data inside Fabric just to be consumed by ontology, right? So ontology is not always the go-to options. Microsoft had given us multiple options to work with, and ontology is just one of them, right? So that is something that you always need to keep in mind, right? Now, in this case, I completely focused on an ontology I generated with a semantic model because that helps me to like showcase you much more, and I do need to create entity by entity with an ontology in Scratch. But you also have the opportunity to create an ontology from scratch, define your entities, define your relationships from scratch, and also do the necessary data binding to the event house or simply the lake house tables, right? So that itself, ontology itself, is a form of Fabric data agent tuning, right? So it provides the necessary data definitions and business context that's required to operate your data agent. And what does it look like? Now, let's say I have this ontology and I believe I can't use it because I haven't binded the data. But yeah, simply you can utilize this ontology, the ontology in your Fabric data agent. And that is another option that we can go for as well, go for, right? So yeah, so that was about the ontology. Now with ontology, I'm getting right into my final slide for today, which is an actionable blueprint for you guys to take away and simply have it in place when you're tuning your data agents, right? Now, firstly, what you need to do is when you're spinning up a data agent, uh, even before you spin up a data agent, you need to identify which data sources are you going to connect to your data agent, right? So let's say I have a semantic model already and I want to connect my data agent to a semantic model. Perfect. So what you do is you go for that option, and the first thing you need to do in this case, like if you want to bring in your semantic model into a data agent or simply connect your semantic model to a data agent, is to use the prep for the prep data for AI option um, in the semantic model, and to ensure that the semantic model is prepared, clean, and ready for to be consumed by the Fabric data agents. This is simply tuning at the source level, right? So you tune the first thing that you simply do is you identify the Fabric data sources that you want to have in your in your Fabric data agent, and you tune those sources to uh, tune those sources. I mean, simply prepare the data in the source level and tune the agent in the source level to ensure that the data sources are prepared and ready to provide the right responses. So when it comes to a semantic model, you have to tune it from with the prep data for AI. But when it comes to options like the lakehouse, warehouse, what you do is you tune it within the agent itself with the data source instructions and the example queries, right? And ontology is tuned already, like there is no tuning to do there because it itself is provides the data definitions and the necessary business context. That is the tuning piece, which is the first thing you need to do. The second piece that you need to do is the agent level tuning. After you tune it in the source level, you need to also tune it in the agent level, which is with the agent level instructions. It is necessary for you to provide proper agent instructions as the next step. And the final step is to simply execute and validate. It is important for you to be that human in the loop and to ensure that this agent is trusted to provide the right responses. You need to take that accountability and be that human in the loop to ensure that you have completed a proper test and scope to be confident enough to say that this agent is providing the responses that it's expected to provide, right? So how we did it, like in our experience, is we created a bunch of test cases very identical to how we do with any other uh, product or any other application or any other pipeline uh, that we work with. So we created a bunch of test cases with the test prompts and also the expected responses, and we simply executed that, tested it out. We to an extent that we were confident enough to say that this agent is responding as it is expected to respond. With that said, that concludes my session for today. So feel free to connect with me through LinkedIn by scanning through the QR code in the right hand side of your screen. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for having me, Adriano. I do really appreciate it once again. It's an honor to be here and to present in your user group. And if you do have it, if anyone does have any questions, more than happy to take it up as well. Thank you so much, Adrian.
All right, Thimantha, thank you very much. Great presentation there. Really appreciate you going over fabric data agents, ontology, and the intricacies that you have found during your with your experience by using it. I just hang on a second there. We do have a few questions here.
For sure.
And before that, folks, remember, if you have a question, use the live chat right now, enter it. Now, if the presentation has completed and you are watching it on demand, take a minute. Remember first to subscribe, like, and drop a comment. And in that comment, you can also include your question and we will follow up. All right. With that said, let's check out those questions. And
Thank you.
I also like to thank everyone for making the time to attend. And let's go to it. So,
Right.
all right. I know
So,
we have two here right on the top,
mhm,
and then we'll go through the others.
mhm,
All
agreed.
right. So, is it showing? We have here the first question
Mhm.
from,
Right.
yeah, it's showing
So,
now. All right. So, I don't know if you're familiar with it. Let me say it and then you tackle.
mhm.
And this comes from Sabrina Gomez. Thank you, Sabrina. The question is about Copilot Studio has evals, monitoring, analytics, etc. for agents. Do you know if Fabric agents have a similar option?
Fabric data agents does not have any monitoring or analytics capabilities as of now. So, with that said, what I'm assuming is that this question is completely based on like monitoring and analytics means like, for example, like a number of users who had consumed the agent and what kind of token consumption it looks like and what does the consumption kind of looks like kind of analytics is and monitoring is what I'm looking at, like simply monitoring the agent. Uh, as far as I know, Fabric Data Agent does not facilitate that as of yet, but there is an option. You can also integrate Fabric data agents to Azure AI Foundry, right? This gives you much more potential. This gives you the features that are in the Fabric data agents as well. That are in Azure AI Foundry as well, like the monitoring capabilities and everything, as well to utilize. So I would say that is a go-to option. And to be very honest, like Copilot to I'm not very versed in the Copilot Studio front, but I can tell you that in terms of the Fabric data agents, I haven't like we do not have the monitoring analytics capabilities as of yet. But yeah, there is potential for like there is definitely more capabilities. Like if you integrate your Fabric data engine to Azure AI Foundry.
All right, thank you very much. There you have it. Thank you very much as well to Sabrina Gomez 1000.
Thank you.
Thank you for your call, for your question. Next, we have Frick Frack 1976. And the question is, hi, Thimantha, what are your thoughts on Fabric IQ for AI, context, meaning semantics, and ontology? Any thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So Fabric IQ is like the bigger picture of all this, right? So Fabric IQ has the Fabric data agents, it has the ontology, it has a semantic model, it has operational agent, and it has all these capabilities underneath it. And Microsoft had branded it in top as Fabric IQ, right? So it's like this top high level brand name, I would say the high level way of defining all these AI capabilities in Fabric. But now I want to say, so my thoughts on that is that yes, there are so I would focus on semantic models and ontology. Yes, so in this case, semantic models and ontology, my thoughts are that ontology does have a lot of power in it and a lot of potential in it, but it does not potentially mean that you have to always go for an ontology. You have to always have an ontology in place just because, according to the book, it has potential and capability in it. There are much more other options to that, apart from that, like the semantic model, as mentioned in the question. So, semantic, as long as you have a clean and a good semantic model, which you potentially do have with your previous Power BI engagements or Power BI reporting solutions potentially that you might have built. As long as you have a clean semantic model, you do not need to go for an ontology in any case. And something about ontology is that for ontology to operate 100%, you also need to make sure that the data is within Fabric, right? So it should be in a lake house table or warehouse event house table, right? So not it's not always sustainable to like bring all your data to Fabric just to utilize ontology. So that is another thought process there as well. So long story short, the semantic model in this case that's branded under Fabric IQ right now is the same Power BI semantic model you and I worked in the past. It's just that it's rebranded under Fabric IQ now. So feel free to utilize these semantic models that are currently available and that currently do have the capability uh, uh, with your Fabric data agents. Like whenever you want to try out this AI capabilities, right? So that is my thoughts around it. Yes. So in terms of AI context, it's simply semantic models and ontology, and also you can still provide AI context. Yeah, simply semantic model and ontology, and that's pretty much what I have to say about it. Ontology is highly, extremely powerful, and it does have a lot of potential in it, but does not mean you have to always go to ontology. You can always stick to the Power BI semantic model or the semantic model, and as long as you have a clean semantic model and it is prepared for AI use, you are good to go ahead with that, because ontology also means that you need to bring data into Fabric, which is to a lakehouse table or a event house table, which is not always sustainable. That is just that is the last few sentences is just a recap of everything that I said.
All right. So let's give it just one more. minute here, folks. If you have a question, use the live chat to enter your questions right now. If the presentation has completed, remember to use the comment section below. We'll follow up for you. Also, I'm gonna follow up with Thimantha regarding some of the resources that can be shared, and I will drop a link in the description for you. All right, and Thimantha, also after the presentation, just hang on for a few. All right,
Absolutely.
all right, folks.
Thank you so much.
Take the
Thank you
opportunity
much.
here. I don't see any more questions for at this point. So thank you all for joining us today. Fantastic presentation here by Thimantha. Thank you very much, Thimantha. Appreciate it here, the support coming in and sharing the knowledge with us all. And that's all, folks. Stay tuned. We will be presenting, bringing it in a new topic
Absolutely.
for next presentation. All right. So, folks, remember, stay tuned, like, subscribe, share, enjoy the user group, and we will be back here next month. So, check out the YouTube channel as well as the Meetup page for our upcoming event. And we are also on LinkedIn. All of this information is in the description below. All right, Thimantha, stay tuned. And any last words here for you?
Absolutely. So firstly, Adriano, thank you so much for having me as always. I really do appreciate that, and it's an honor to be a part of this user group. Have been working together with you for like over 5 years now, and have been presenting multiple sessions, and it's an always an honor to be a part of this. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining in for this session as well. Really do appreciate it, and also really do appreciate the questions. If you would like to connect, feel free to connect through LinkedIn. And if you do have any questions, or if you get stuck at any point in terms of uh, tuning fabric data agents or any topics related to fabric data agents, more than happy to have them answered as well. Thank you so much. And that's about it in terms of last words, Adriano. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you all, folks, for being here with us. Remember to like, subscribe, and connect with us, whether it's LinkedIn and Meetup. With that, have a good night, you all. Remember, comment, like, subscribe, and see you all next time.